Greetings. Back with another one. Now, for those who've been watching my videos, you know I'm a Gears of War, diehard Gears of War fan. And of course I'm very hyped that Gears of War E-Day, is gonna be coming out. I don't know when, we don't have a release date yet. But as far as as the franchise is concerned, I'm really trying to wrap my head around the concerns a lot of people have. When you compare the first three games and then to the basically the previous generation to the current generation, I know a lot of people have strong feelings, but some people just said that the last three were just plain awful. I mean, which I strongly disagree with. But I mean, do I put them over the first three in terms of technology and with the gameplay and stuff like that? Obviously, the gameplay for Gears of War had improved from one all the way till now. I mean, it's absolutely crazy to say that the gameplay from the first one is better than the fifth one. I mean, the game is improved. So, but like I said, it's for me. I mean, it's a lot of nostalgia for me, obviously. And I mean, to me, I would say that the concern personally for me is obviously going to be the character development and the excuse me, and the dynamic between those characters. Marcus, Dom, Cole, and Baird. I mean, those guys are untouchable in terms of character development and just the dynamic and the everything those guys been through together. You know, Kate, JD, and Dell is just, it doesn't seem there. So I would say that was probably the weakest point. But I'm just talking about the game, its totality in terms of the gameplay. I still think the Gears of War games are great in terms of the gameplay. I mean, you get on Shred. I mean, you got the Horde mode. I mean, the gunplay to me is still good. But I'm going to react to this video by Andy Pants Gaming, and I'll be sure to put the their channel so you can find them or him. I don't know how many people work on the channel, but the title of this video says, "Where did Gears go wrong?" And he's basically said, "Do you disagree or agree?" So I'm going to see what I agree with and what I disagree with, because I really want to wrap my head around the concerns that a lot of people have. Because do I think that the latest Gears of War games are awful? No, I don't. I don't think they're awful. I mean, I would say the story for the last two games, 5 and 4. I don't know. It's just like my biggest criticism from the fifth game. It was, I don't like how they did JD in the fifth game. I really don't, because when you saw the fourth game, JD looked like he was going to be he was going to take the Phoenix mantle and lead the charge. But then when the fifth game came out, they did this complete 180 on us, and they just made JD to seem. It just seemed like Kate and Dell were just pissed off at JD the entire time, and I didn't like that at all. But in terms of the technology and the graphics and stuff like that, and just the level design of what I was seeing during the story, I mean, I didn't care for the skiff, the open world stuff. I mean, it was cool. It was a cool new feature, but I didn't care for. I didn't think that Gears needed that. But overall, just in terms of the the aesthetic of technically, I enjoyed it. But it's just the story that really took a plunge, in my opinion. And I think that's probably why TC are taking us back with a spinoff for E-Day. That's probably why they didn't go forward with Gear 6, because I guess because of the criticism. But like I said, I'm rambling as usual. But let me just see what Andy Pants has to say about where Gears went wrong.
Gears of War 1 was released in 2006 as an Xbox 360 exclusive. Microsoft needed another game besides Halo to entice new fans, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one.
Yeah,
the
they
game
did.
still sits at a 94 on Metacritic and regularly makes lists of top 10 games of all time. As far as shooters go, it's probably top 5 of all time. It's hard to overestimate the seismic effect the Gears of War games had on the
top
industry.
2 in my opinion.
Gears of War quite literally created the third-person cover-based shooter. And we can see this in the fact that any game today with cover-based shooting merely copies its mechanics.
I will agree with that. Like I said, because before Gears of War, the shooter that I played the most probably, goes back to the 64, like with GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, like shooters like that, and like Time Splitters, but they were all first person. Gears of War really started the third person shooter craze, at least for me. Um, I like that. Some of the Resident Evil games went third person too, like that. Because like in the early 2000s, the third person over the shoulder shot that was really big. And when Gears of War took off, it seemed like a lot of shooters were doing in that, which was fine to me because I prefer the third person shooter. To me, it just seems more immersive. You seem more immersed with the character and stuff like that. Like I said, you have a lot of great first person shooters out there, but it's based on it's based on your preference. You know what I'm saying? I can go back and forth between first and third, but I really prefer the third.
Last of Us, Uncharted, GTA 5, Mass Effect, Fortnite, The Division, Tomb Raider, all these and more are children of the Gears games. But Gears wasn't just a huge success because of its shooting mechanics. The game was also brutal on a level we hadn't seen before. Created iconic
That was the big thing.
iconic characters,
Yeah.
told a one-of-a-kind buddy war story starring Marcus Phoenix and Dominic Santiago. Playing the Gears trilogy through now in 2024, I also noticed just how brutal and smart the 2006 enemy AI still is. How it's been 18 years and enemy AI in games has somehow gotten worse is something I still don't understand. Gears 1 still holds up as having some of the best moment-to-moment gameplay I've seen in a game, and definitely belongs in the pantheon of great games next to titles like Metal Gear Solid. So, where did Gears go wrong?
Yeah, and he mentioned that the AI, the bots in the story mode, like I would agree with that. When you played the original, if for some reason it was mainly just in the first game that they were really like that. The bots would actually flank you, and they were so aggressive. They would just walk right towards you. For example, like I said, the first campaign on the hardest difficulty, insane difficulty, it's self-explanatory. It was insane. You get hit. There were no downs. You get hit, it was automatic death. I think that's all the Gears games. But for some reason, the first game, it was so difficult. I got through it eventually, but my gosh, because the bots were just so aggressive, they would just walk towards you. So I would agree with that.
Well, I'm going to get into that later on. If you enjoy these videos, hit the subscribe button. For the rest of this video, I want to analyze the 3 big reasons I think Gears of War was so influential. Number
Let's
1,
hear
the
this.
shooting felt like nothing else. Number 2, the gameplay felt like nothing else. And number 3, the story felt like nothing else. In the second half of the video, I'm going to analyze what many fans consider to be the downfall of Gears. Where did it go wrong, and how might Gears find its way back into the public's good graces? I'm going to bring up this guy Cliff Bleszinski a lot. He was
Cliffy
the
B.
creator of Gears and truly seems responsible for nearly everything that made this game good. The dude definitely wears Affliction shirts and Oakleys and drinks Monster, but we're not going to hold that against him. His career sadly died in 2017 with this commercial flop of a game called Lawbreakers, and
Yeah, I
now he
remember
makes
that.
musicals with his wife. Yikes. Anyway, let's talk about the game. The shooting in Gears felt like nothing else. So I know I said this earlier, but Gears of War created the cover-based shooter as we know it today. What do I mean by that? Well, Gears of War finally figured out how cover-based shooting was supposed to feel, and they finally did.
Yeah, before Gears, you probably had like games, like some of you probably don't even know this game, but it was a game called Siphon Filter. Siphon Filter was like a third person shooter for the original PlayStation PS1 days, and that had like a cover based system. It was like I said for the PS1, it wasn't bad. Siphon Filter was a very fun game. There was another game. It was Apocalypse. I don't know if it had a cover based system, but yeah, Siphon Filter was probably like the big game that I can know right off the bat. Before Gears, that was third person that had like cover based stuff like that. Did it have cover based on Siphon? I don't know. I'm losing my mind. Like I said, I'm just rumbling.
Did it right, and now everyone just copies Gears. Now, was there technically a game in 2003 called Kill Switch that was actually the first cover-based shooter? Yes.
Kill Switch. I
But
never
it's an
heard of that. Kill
unfortunate
Switch.
fact
Okay.
of life that a game must
Never heard of
also
that.
be popular to be influential, and Kill Switch was not a popular game. Some people have pointed to Resident Evil 4, which came out a year before Gears, as pioneering this shooting style. RE4 doesn't actually let you snap to cover at all, though, and therefore isn't a cover-based shooter. RE4
It wasn't a
definitely
cover-based shooter, but it had,
influenced
that
shooters,
third
but
person
Gears of
over
War
the
is
shoulder.
the father of the third-person cover-based shooter. It's also really interesting to look at games from this time period that hadn't quite figured out how third-person cover-based shooting is supposed to work. GTA 4, despite being an incredible game, came out a full 2 years after Gears and has absolutely awful cover-based shooting. I happen to be playing it right now, and you can see some of it on screen. In the game, you're always snapping to the wrong person or moving awkwardly between cover. To reference an even older game, I remember playing The Getaway on PS2 back in the day, and wow, the shooting is so awkward and feels so
I remember
terrible
that
in this game.
I did play that.
Given how bad cover-based shooting felt in games up to this time, it's easy to see why Gears of War was so influential. Okay, Andrew, so what exactly was the cover-based shooting mechanic that they...
Like I said, like this, like the golden rule of the Gears: take cover or die. So like I said, if you haven't played Gears, if you don't really know nothing about Gears, cover is everything. It is everything. I mean, I know a lot of people probably play COD and games like that, but Gears of War cover is everything. It is everything until you know how to dance and do all the other tricky stuff that you can do with the Nashor. But proceed.
They invented. Well, it's simple. When walking around, the camera is behind you and looks wherever you are looking. A button snaps you into cover, either behind a wall or waist-high cover. When you hold aim from this position, the camera zooms in so that all you are seeing is the player character's shoulder and head and what you're pointing at. It seems so obvious and intuitive right now, but man, it took years for video games to figure out how to do this right. If you don't believe me, go back and play GTA 4 or GTA 3 or The Getaway, and you will see how incredibly awkward shooting guns in a third-person game used to be. The gameplay felt like nothing else. So I should probably explain that I have zero nostalgia for the Gears games, and I never even played one all the way through until 2023.
Damn.
So don't think that what I'm about to say is colored by nostalgia, because I literally did not play these games until 2023. Gears of War 1 is still one of the tightest, most difficult...
Wait, see, he never played him until 2023. Wow. Yeah, see, for me, it's nostalgia, by far.
Funnest games you can play to this day. If you have never played a Gears game, I would recommend playing the Ultimate Edition right now, and you will see that almost nothing about this game has aged at all. So as far as gameplay goes, if I had to pick one thing that makes Gears 1 so special, it would be the difficulty. Gears 1 takes about 8 hours to beat on normal difficulty. Love short games, by the way. Wish more games were like this. But on hardcore difficulty, I swear the game took me at least 20 hours. I could go on and on about the clenched butthole moments I had in this game. Cliffy B was a sadistic master, playing on my worst fears with well-timed enemy wave after enemy wave. When you play Gears 1, particularly the last half of the game, I really got the sense that the guys who made this game sat there and must have beta tested this game over and over again, and they truly wanted the 20th time you play a section of the game to be as fun as the first time you play a section of the game. You can practically smell the Dorito and Cheeto dust coming off of this game, as I imagine Cliffy and the team at Epic spent sleepless night after sleepless night absolutely perfecting the AI in this game. And like I said, I think it's best enjoyed on hardcore difficulty.
Like I said, it was a masterpiece, especially for its time. It really was.
Where I must have died 500 times. The level starts out
Same
with
here.
Locusts and Theron guards. Locusts will rush you and destroy you. Theron guards have a one-shot crossbow bolt they can hit you with that will immediately end your life. I always remember getting past the Locusts and Theron at this part, and then what should appear but boomers and wretches. This is a brilliant piece of gameplay because as I'm struggling to hide from the boomers, the wretches are ambushing me. It's tiny little details like that that make Gears 1 feel like such a tight, perfectly designed game. Another wonderfully hard thing about Gears is that A, the checkpoints are punishingly difficult, often being very far apart and making you redo entire sections of the game, and B, there is no revive mechanic. They added the revive mechanic in Gears 2, but in 1, you were just up shit creek. The enemy types in Gears 1 are really well designed and play off of each other perfectly. Locust soldiers behave kind of like players, shooting and hiding behind things. Wretches are those little hunchback things that run straight at you. Theron guards can kill you with one shot of a bolt. Boomers can one-shot you with a grenade.
I couldn't stand the Theron
guards. Snipers can't one-shot you, but will do a ton of damage. And then lastly, you have emergence holes, meaning enemies can show up and flank you from any direction. The balance and the interplay of these different types of enemies really made this game sing for me in a way that most games don't. And that's why I think Gears 1 and actually the whole Gears trilogy are classic video games. Technically, I was fighting the same types of enemies the entire game, and yet it never got old for some reason. And the only reason I can imagine why is because the AI was so good that fights always felt tense and taut. Every single fight in hardcore difficulty, I made it through by the skin of my teeth. And this is one of the main reasons I was so disappointed with Gears 4 and Gears 5. but I'll talk about those games later on.
Yeah, see, like I said, that I
Another
do
thing
want to
haven't
hear. I want to
touched
hear
on yet in
why.
this game is the incredibly fun weaponry, like the Lancer rifle, i.e., the chains.
Yeah, now, this is the one thing that I do miss in some of the newer Gears games. I mean, this has been a repeated thing, since after the third one. Because when Gears of War 3 came out, there was a spin-off Gears of War game. For those who don't know, it was called Judgment, and it was developed by a company called People Can Fly or something like that. And they made another game, I think, called I forget the name of it. Bulletstorm, which I think Bulletstorm. That's what it's called. I think People Can Fly made it, but that was a really fun game as well. But around those times between those two games, Gears of War 3 and Gears of War Judgment, you had a lot of different weapons that were being introduced to the game. Of course, you see the sword off right there. That was in Gears of War 3. I love that weapon. A lot of people hated it, but I loved it. And then you got the breach shot. The breach shot, that was actually, from Judgment, which is pretty much a long shot without a scope. A locust modified weapon. The tripfire crossbow, that's another Judgment weapon. So Judgment, it is really a departure from the first three Gears games, because it was like a spin-off and it was developed by another company. So it's very, very different. And then you got the Bushka and the Gorgon pistols. Like some of these, like I said, a lot of these weapons aren't in the previous game anymore.
Saw gun and the Hammer of Dawn. What is there to say about the Lancer rifle that hasn't been said? Rushing up on an enemy locust and sawing them in half while blood goes everywhere is truly one of those gaming moments you never forget. Playing them for the first
I never
time
liked that
recently,
featuring games
I'm
when
reminded
blood hits
how
the screen. I've
incredibly
never cared
gory
for
the
it.
first
I
three
never cared
Gears
for it.
games are, and it just seemed like 4
I've
and 5
never
got
cared
tamer
for it.
and tamer. The enemies in the original Gears trilogy, there was buckets and buckets of blood, and it was toned down quite a bit in Gears 4 and 5. In a similar way, the Hammer of Dawn was such an iconic weapon in the first game that it comes up again and again in later games.
Like I said, if you want to keep all of the blood and gut, like I said, that's what drew me to Gears as well. Was all of the gore and the violence. That's what drew me to Gears of War a lot. Because of that, all of the cool, gruesome executions you can do. So, like I said, if you want to keep the heavy gore for campaign purposes and horror purposes, is fine. But for competitive purposes and playing online and stuff, it gets annoying. It really gets annoying. Like I've so many times, like around Gears 3 and 4 time. Playing online and you're going around, you're shredding people, using your Nash or your shotgun, blasting people, and sometimes you got to get through multiple people. I mean, there were times where I'm surrounded by like 2 or 3 people, and I got to take them by myself and stuff like that. So when you shred one of them, you take one out, and you got like strawberry jam all over your screen, and your vision is kind of like impaired a little bit. You can't really see because the screen is just covered with jam. And then you sometimes get shredded by the second guy. It was such an annoying thing for me. Like, I don't know if he's ever experienced that, but that was such an annoying thing for me. So that's why I never really cared for blood on the screen. I'm fine with blood in the game, but to have it all over the screen, it causes a lot of problems, especially for online play.
Because fans loved it so much. There's not much to say about it, really, other than that it's an incredibly cool
The
idea
hammer.
to have a device that you point at enemies to line up a huge laser from the heavens.
Yeah, when I first saw that, man, I was blown away by that.
In his book Control Freak, Cliffy B talks about how much he looks up to creators like Hideo Kojima in making the Gears games. I think Cliff doesn't give himself enough credit in this area because, in my opinion, like I said earlier, Gears is at least as important in the video game pantheon as Metal Gear Solid is. Just as Metal Gear Solid inspired a generation of stealth games, Gears inspired a generation of cover-based shooters. Furthermore, in Cliffy's defense,
The funny thing about that, what you just saw, the Hammer of Dawn of the Berserker enemy, the quickest way to kill the Berserker, if you wanted to get through it, once you hammer it, you could just walk up to it and stick it with a frag, and it will automatically kill it in just one go. That was the quickest way to kill the Berserker. I can't remember like where I discovered that, but I heard it from somewhere. It was crazy when I first did it. You just hammer them, and you just go over there and stick them with a frag, and that was it.
I love the Metal Gear games, but if you try to go back and play Metal Gear Solid 2 now, you'll see how horribly dated the camera and controls are, and it's not so with the Gears of War games.
Like, I've never cared for
Never
fixed
has a
camera
game
stuff.
from
I never liked
2006
it.
felt so fresh and so relevant to today. Another thing here that Cliffy learned from Hideo Kojima is the art of the boss battle. There are several incredibly clever boss battles in Gears 1 in this game, including the Brumak and the Berserker. Doing the Berserker fight for the first time, it took me a while to figure out that you had to take out the columns to beat him, but sometimes it's just simple mechanics like that in boss fight.
Now, when Gears of War 1 came out or 2 came out, because like I said, I played Gears of War 2. That was the first one I played first. And then I went back and played the original one. But when you see the Gears of War trailer for the first game, you were led. I'm like I said, I was led to believe that I was going to be fighting like these giant monsters the whole time. I thought it was just going to be like a monster fighting game, like because when I believe the first trailer is like Marcus, he encounters like a corpser. If you don't know what a corpse is, like those big, it's like these big, huge monster spider looking mon. I don't even know how to describe them, but they have like these huge. They just look like giant. They just look like giant spiders. I can't describe it, but like they're big, they're massive, and I thought that you were going to be fighting just massive enemies the whole time. I didn't, because I didn't expect like drones and stuff like that. So when I first saw Gears, I was kind of like taken aback to that, because I thought the enemy types were going to all just be massive, in size. But he mentions the boss fights. Now, to me, in Gears of War, that was something that was always they were very Epic and TC. They were always very conservative about the boss fights. To me, throughout the Gears of War franchise, to me there wasn't enough of it. It wasn't enough boss fights in my opinion. Like for example, in the first game, all the bosses, you got what, one berserker, two. You fight like three berserkers. You fight like one corpser, and then it's like Rom at the end. Like I said, because the boomers in the original game were like kind of like sub bosses. Man, like they were like sponges in the first game, and in the second game you had what? How many boss fights you had? Scourge and the Brumok at the end. Like I said, and then you had the Leviathan. Like I said, it was always maybe like 2 to 3 bosses each game. In the third one, you had how many bosses? Like I said, I don't even count the Leviathan you fought in the first, because that was kind of like kind of like a story, you know, angle there where you had to just take the Leviathan out so you can get off the ship. But in the third game, it was mainly just the Hydra that you fought. That Queen Mira, she was riding on that Hydra. I think that was called a Hydra, or the Tempest. It was called the Tempest, I think. Yeah, the Tempest, and you fought that. Then you had the Lambent Berserker. But like I said, it wasn't a lot of boss fights on that. It was mainly just two. If memory serves me. Gears 4. What? Like I said, I can't even remember any boss fights on Gears 4. It's just except that little monster that big monster that you fight at the end. The fifth one, you fight the big massive Leviathan thing again, and then of course Rain and stuff like that. But Gears, to me, that was always something that I wish I got more of. I wish we got more boss fights. I don't like I said, I don't think that we've got enough boss fights throughout the Gears trilogy. But that's just my
That
opinion.
make them so satisfying. The story felt like nothing else. The Gears trilogy truly taught game developers everywhere exactly how you do a sequel, and I wish this idea was copied more. If you can't improve on the original game, don't make anything at all. Gears 2 and Gears 3 took the base that Gears 1 had established and they made it better. They made the story better. They made the set pieces better. They made the mechanics better. Gears 2 and 3 merely improved Gears 1. This is also why I think Cliffy B walked away from Gears after making Gears 3, because he knew he was not able to make it any better. And he was probably right. Most of us fans believe that Gears 3 is the highlight of the series, and it never got better. It only went down from there.
I would agree. Like in my personal opinion, I do think the third game, it is the best in the series. That's my personal opinion. I do think the third one takes the cake in that regard. And like I said, he said Cliffy B left because he couldn't, outdo that. Sure, but also because the story was over. I mean, the humans, they won. If you don't know, like I said, for those who don't know the story of Gears of War, it was basically based on, the coalition of order governments going against these what you see like the locusts, who were kind of like these mole people who lived underground, and these two, armies were fighting over a fictional field called the Motion. And then but they didn't. And Motion was something that that the cog and both both armies were using it as energy and stuff like that, because it was used as a fuel as well, and you can use it to power up stuff, and you can use it to like make weaponry and stuff, like forge weaponry and stuff like that. That's what the Locusts were using to forge weaponries and stuff, because they were closer to it. They were underground. And in Gears of War 3, you discovered that the emotion is actually a parasitic organism, and it was actually killing the planet. And then Marcus's dad, Adam Phoenix, he discovered that, and he created the emotion countermeasure, which was a weapon that killed all the emotion, and he saved the planet. But sadly, he sacrificed himself to discover how it can reproduce. So he sacrificed himself, but he saved the planet. He saved everybody by taking out the emotion and stuff like that. And that was kind of like Gears, the story of Gears, the gist of it.
But getting back to the story, before I talk about the story of Gears of War, I want to zoom out for a second and talk about
he's going to cover it anyway,
game and why it works so well together as a complete package. Gears 1 on hardcore difficulty is incredibly hard. Then you look at the characters, and you've got these hard-ass, grizzled military guys. Marcus, Dom, Coltrane, they're grunt soldiers who did their job so well they got promoted, but they're still grunts. The whole idea of the Gears games is that
that to me, like I said earlier, that is the biggest reason why the first 3 games worked so well, was because of those 4. The dynamic between those guys, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the love, the loss that they experience, and a lot of humor as well. That to me is the reason why it worked. To me, it really didn't matter what the story was about. It was just that those 4 guys, when you go on this journey, you feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like you feel what they're going through and stuff like that. And like I said, I can't put it into words. But for those who haven't played, I highly recommend you do play it, so you can really experience that for yourself.
That the camera never zooms out. You are the grunt soldier. You are doing the dirty work. Bureaucrats and politicians will argue about taxes. You're just here to shoot stuff, take care of business, and chainsaw guys in half. As far as the story beats itself, Gears takes the template from classic war movies like Saving Private Ryan, Fury, and Platoon. The camera never pulls out to give you the general's perspective. You've been given your order. You are on a linear mission throughout the whole game to complete an objective. In this way, the Gears games are hyper-masculine, hyper-military games. Rough men talking roughly to one another.
That is the reason. That's why it worked.
But we're still here with a job to do.
Now it's all, oh, Coltrane, tell us all
sign
about
my shirt.
And hey, number 83, sign my shirt.
And because of this hyper-masculinity that you see in the first 3 Gears games, I think this is why Gears 4 and 5 fumbled so hard for me.
There you go. See,
Diaz, and why am I?
See, there you go. I told you that is the real reason. Like I guarantee you, if we still had it, like, well, sadly for those, like I hate to spoil it for those who haven't played, but sadly, those 4 guys, we lost one of them. We lost one of them. Spoiler alert: we lost one of them for those who haven't played it. But like I said, if we still had that masculine brotherhood, that camaraderie, that kinship of those guys in the 4th game, then people would have taken to it better. But like I said, from Gears of War 3 to Gears of War 4, that's 20 plus years. Because like I said, Marcus had a son, JD, and JD is like in his mid-20s, so it's 20 plus years from the 3rd game and the 4th game. So it was a new generation. Like I said, I have no problem, if you want to introduce a new generation, like Kate, JD, and Dell, and Oscar, and like, I have no problem with that. And the one thing, and the reason why I kept getting Gears again, because I have all of them. So I was, like I said, once Gears of War 4 was announced, I said to myself, look, I'm not going to compare this to the first 3 games. I'm not going to, because this is new characters, new generation, new objective, new motivations and stuff like that. So I was willing to leave the past where it is. Like that game, the past 3 games, those are sacred. So I'm not touching those. So I wanted to keep an open mind while playing the next 3, then the next trilogy. So I was an open book at that point. So I was like, yeah, like, wait, let's see what they got. The 4th game to me was, like I said, story wise, I really had no problem with it because it was JD leading the charge. You know, Marcus's son. And I like the dynamic that you see between Marcus and JD and how they didn't get along and all that stuff because Marcus didn't want JD to join the COG. And then they discovered that the locusts never really died. They just evolved into something else, which they call a swarm now. You know, because they really couldn't, I guess you could say, bury the locusts the way that they wanted to, because when the motion countermeasure took out the locusts, it crystallized their bodies. And then they got cocooned and stuff like that, and they just became something else. As what of course Marcus explains all that stuff to the kids and stuff like that. But like I said, I had no problem with the 4th game and the 5th game, technically wise. The gameplay, it was still Gears in terms of the gameplay. It's just the story took a plunge, especially in the 5th game. The 4th game I really didn't have a problem with, but it was just something I had to get used to because I know we weren't going to get Marcus, Dom, Cole, and Bear and stuff like that.
Supposed to care about her and her mom. Gears 4 and 5 completely lost the brand identity of the Gears games. Gears is about male bonding and brotherhood. It's about men fighting hard-ass fights and a war against
I think that's the
evil
main
locusts
reason.
taking
I think
over
that's
the
the
world.
only reason, to be honest.
We are the grunts. We are the boots on the ground. It's a game of manliness. No offense to games that focus on female characters, but Gears is a game about men. Moving on to the actual story, you could sum up the story of Gears 1 in a few sentences. Marcus Phoenix and his allies are on a mission to get a device that will take out the Locust Horde. We fumble when we first get the device, but get a better version of the device later on and wipe out the Locusts. Boom. End of Gears 1. Gears 2 and 3, as all good sequels do, significantly expand the range of the story. Possible spoilers ahead, by the way. In Gears 2, the game
he gonna spoil them anyway. I already did it for you.
to you. Dom is your war buddy throughout the first game. In the second game, he talks about how much he misses his wife Maria and wants to see her. We finally get underground to her, and she's inside one of those containers, being drained of her life by the locusts.
Yeah, that was
He kisses
sad
her
right there.
just as her skull fades away, and she's zombified right in front of us. Even now, 15 years later, this scene hits hard. There's also a scene later on where Ty, the dude with tattoos all over him, commits suicide when he realizes he's being turned into a locust. I can't think of any other game in 2010 that had suicide or such heavy themes. Moving on to Gears 3, the spot that hit me the hardest in that game is, of course, the death of Dominique Santiago.
There you go. He already spoiled it for me. There you go.
Games at this point, and to kill off a character you thought.
I'm telling you right now, when this happened, I actually got emotional, and I'm not too proud to mention to say that. I actually got emotional when I saw this. Because I can remember when Gears of War 3 was coming out, and my buddies and I, I think we went to like the Best Buy, one of those stores when it launched, and then I got the I didn't get the COG tags, but I had got like a beanie that had the Gears of War 3 logo on it, and they were giving away stickers. And we played the segment where you played with Cole when he was at when they were at Hanover and stuff like that. That's the segment that we got to play before, because like I said, we were at the midnight launch, so we were just counting down the clock before they were handing out the hard copies and stuff like that. But yeah, man, like Gears of War 3 is just story wise. To me, it is the best one story wise. Because it hits you everywhere, man. And like I said, this is why I have a lot of love and empathy for Marcus, man. Well, sympathy for Marcus because of what he went through, particularly in the third game. He lost his brother. He lost his dad. Less than 24 hours in between each other. I mean, like I said, he still had Anya at the end, but what he lost, it was just you really felt for Marcus. And I hope that he mentions this decision that you make in the fifth game. I hope he mentions in that. But like I said, man, anybody who's a Gears of War fan, we all felt this loss right here. Dom, man.
What you were going to get to the finish line with is absolute emotional damage.
Griffin.
The reason I believe the Gears trilogy is so celebrated and the fourth and fifth games are such mixed bags is because plot-wise, the first three games followed the formula of classic buddy war movies like Saving Private Ryan. Why this is such a timeless plot for a movie and a timeless plot for a game is because we don't actually want the camera to pull out. We don't actually want to know that everything we're doing just makes us a cog hit in a machine. When you're with your platoon, you have everything you want: friendship, community, purpose. The orders that come down from your commander don't really matter. This is a basic principle of every army and how it works. The same applies to war stories in games, if they actually want to be realistic and good war stories. The orders coming down from above don't matter. It's our brother next to us that matters. Unfortunately, again, Gears 4 doesn't seem to understand any of that. Instead of Gears being about brotherhood, duty, and a common purpose to your fellow man, Gears 4 is about women, motherhood, and being a deserter. It also plays the worst of...
Now, I'm 50-50 on what he just said, and here's why. And like I said, I understand where he's coming from. I know what he's saying, because in modern time, modern gaming, filmmaking and stuff like that, they're really pushing this kind of, feminist, girl boss thing. I understand that. But when you look at Marcus's journey, and Baird in particular, because the first games are from Marcus's perspective, and then you go to Judgment. Marcus, he disobeyed orders, and quote unquote, I guess you could say, he deserted. He abandoned his post to go help his dad, but he kind of abandoned his men, and that's the reason why he was imprisoned in the first game. So I mean, like I said, he kind of took on a kind of a, I guess you would say, selfish, or he was tunnel vision on doing something that he wanted to do, and he abandoned his post. He abandoned his comrades, and he was in prison for it. And then Marcus and Baird, and like I say, they both were demoted and stuff like that. Like they always kind of went against, I'm gonna say they always, but they kind of like made decisions that went against the orders that they were told, and they were punished harshly for it. So I mean, like I said, I have no problem with the whole, going your own way and just doing something else, because like I said, because like I said, to me, these last 3 games are just fan service at this point. Because like I said, the story was finished. It was done. The Locusts were defeated. But because Gears was so popular and so successful, I guess TC didn't want to just end it with that. And I'm glad that they didn't. I mean, to me, the more Gears, the better. I mean, it doesn't have to be better or, exceed the first 3 games in terms of, just nostalgia reasons. But like I said, just like he said, I think the main reason why the first 3 games were what they were is because of Marcus, Dom, Cole, and Baird. That brotherhood. That is what Epic Games sold us on for the first 3 Gears games, for those 4 guys. That is the main reason, because we don't get that in 4 or 5, and like I said, we're not gonna get 6, but probably years down the line. But 4 and 5, we don't get that, obviously, because like I said, Marcus and Dom, those guys are old now. I mean, Marcus, Baird, and Cole, they're old now. And you still kind of get it with them, but like I said, the story, they're not the center of the story anymore. It's JD's story and Dell and Kay. So I'm fine with that. But this is why I said earlier, if you're just going to play these newer games just to compare them to the old ones, in terms of, like I said, I'm leaving gameplay off the table. Because gameplay-wise, they're all great. I don't care what anybody say. I will argue with anybody over this. Gameplay-wise, these games are still great, all of them. In terms of gameplay, the games got better as they went along. They just got better gameplay-wise. So to me, I think the only thing that people can argue mainly is just the characters, the character development, and like I said, you can say the story too. But like the character, because like I said, the story was always pretty linear anyway. You got this threatening the planet, and you got to fight, take them out. I mean, it's still kind of there, like as you see with the robots, the DBs. I'll admit, I didn't like that in the 4th game. I mean, we were fighting like robots more than we were fighting locusts or swarm, whatever the hell you want to call them. That's what I didn't like. I didn't like the over use of the DBs, and that we had to fight them and stuff like that. That's what I didn't like about the 4th game in terms of the enemy types. Once you saw them for a little bit, it was alright, but it kind of got annoying for me personally. But did that take away from the campaign and the gameplay? For me, no. Because we still fought, Swarm. We still fought Logos in the game. But like I said, I just think the biggest thing is just because JD, Dell, and Kate, they're not Marcus, Dom, and Cole and Bear. That is the only reason I think that people didn't take to them. Because when you played, the fourth game, you expect to see that. But like I said, I was willing to, just leave the first three games where they are, because I knew it was going to be a big time skip. Marcus, Cole, and Bear, they're old now, so I didn't see it as too much of a negative. I just enjoyed it for what it was, and that's just my perspective of it.
Any of the Gears games so far, but I'll get into that later. Now, I'm no sexist, and I'm totally fine with women being in the Gears games. But when the original trilogy were such male-focused, hyper-masculine games about brotherhood and duty, and then you turn that game on its head and make it about a mother and a daughter, well, it's easy to see why Gears 4 was such a failure critically and commercially. If they wanted to tell the story of Kate Diaz, I think it should have been a spin-off game, kind of like Uncharted Lost Legacy. Gears is about Marcus Phoenix the same way Uncharted is about Nathan Drake. Modern films and media keep doing this to our characters, and I wonder when they will learn that we don't want beloved characters changed. If you want to introduce a new character, create a new series. It's similar to the movie She-Hulk that recently came out. Nobody wanted this movie. Nobody asked for this movie.
Yeah, and another thing, but just like you said, it's just for some reason, it's just the modern way of writing these games and these films. They are just what they say about Kathleen Kennedy and the Star Wars things. They said the future is female. So it just seems like I said, I have no problem with females leading characters. I have no problem with that. Like, for example, I love Ripley in the Alien series. I love Sarah Connor in Terminator and stuff like that. But I think the main focus for a lot of these writers and these developers, they're basically saying that we want a female-driven game or female-driven film, where it should be a film that just so happens to have a female lead. But I just think where a lot of these creators, these writers, get it kind of mixed up is that they want to focus too much on just the main character or the leading character being a female, where it shouldn't matter. For example, when I saw Alien and when I saw Terminator and stuff like that, I didn't care that Ripley and Sarah were females. They just so happened to be women. They would. I mean, the story and the suspense in the films were great. I didn't care that they were women. You know what I'm saying? So, but it just seemed like with modern writing, and like I said, we all know this. Like a lot, we've all paid attention to this. It just seemed like they're just trying to throw it at you. Okay, but she's a woman. She's a woman. She's a woman, right? Don't forget she's a woman. So I think that's what a lot of these developers are struggling with. We don't care that they're women. We honestly don't care that they're men. They just so happen to be a man or just so happen to be a woman. So I mean, that's where the criticism for Gears 4 came. And like I said, JD was the leading guy in 4, and then they just flipped it in 5 and went berserk. And I'm sure he's going to cover that. But let's continue.
And no surprise, it bombed. Well, what about Gears 5? Unfortunately, it fell suspect to all the same problems of Gears 4. It's overly complicated, it gets away from the hyper-masculine, boots-on-the-ground story about men of the first 3 Gears game, and it becomes a game about deserting the military, being a coward, sisterhood, about women, and starring women. One of the final confrontations in Gears 5 involves Kate going head-to-head with Jin, the head of the COG.
Yeah.
Is there a problem, people?
No problem at all, Mrs. Kennedy.
We were just discussing ideas of what to do with the new Prince Eric movie.
Put a chick in it, make her gay!
I found the story of Gears 5 so boring that I barely made it to the end of the game. In addition to the story of Gears 4 and 5 being vastly inferior to the trilogy, the gameplay itself is inferior as well. If you check out the clip on screen, I'm playing hardcore difficulty in Gears of War 1. The combat is incredibly tense and incredibly hard. If you stick your head out for more than a few seconds, the cog in the middle of the screen goes completely red. Taking any fire at all or moving at a bad time in Gears 1 means instant death with nobody to pick you up. So how does the difficulty of Gears 4 compare? Well, it's significantly easier. In Gears 4 on hardcore mode, there's a segment where you are fighting 4.
And see, that's kind of a consistent argument that he's making. To him, for him, difficulty constitutes whether the gameplay is better or not. I don't agree with that. I mean, yeah, a game can be harder, a game can be easier, but to say that just because the game is easier, does that mean that the entire structure of the gameplay suffers? I personally don't agree with that. I mean, like I said, when Gears of War 4, like I said, especially competitive wise, when you're playing like online and stuff, the movement was smoother, it was crisp, it was just better in terms of just the gameplay. Like I say, he's constantly using, difficulty. And like I said, I'm not disputing what he's saying. Yeah, I mean, the older games were harder in terms of difficulty, 100%. But when I hear gameplay, I just mean from a technical standpoint, the movements and stuff like that, and what you have available to you. Like, for example, when Gears of War 3, when they introduced the bag and tag, like how you can mantle, you can like actually mantle over the cover and you kick somebody, and you can at the meat shield, you can stick the frag to him and kick him and get a bag and tag and kill multiple enemies with it, like stuff like that. That's what I consider like gameplay, just like the new stuff that they added and the options that you have and how crisp and how smooth and how fluid the movements are and stuff like that. That to me got better as the games went along. Because like I said, Gears of War 2 and 1 of it was like, it's like I said, it's 2006, so for its time, you get what you get. Gears of War 2 was very clunky. It had so many bugs and so many glitches and stuff like that. It was still fun when we can get a game off and stuff like that, shred and stuff like that. It was still fun in a classic Gears fashion, but it was so clunky and stuff like that. And because like I said, if for me, when I go back, when I'm playing like 4 and 5, when I play like 5 and then I go back to 2, you can tell the difference. So it just seems that he constitutes gameplay with difficulty. I constitute gameplay with mechanics and stuff like that. That's just what I'm getting from what he's saying and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that what he's saying is wrong. It's just different from when I hear the word gameplay.
Boomers at once. I immediately beat this part on my first try. Meanwhile, in Gears 1, the hardest part of the game had 2 boomers, and I must have died 50 times at this part.
Like I said, the older games were cheap. That's why.
I had to stay in
like I said, they would just bum rush you. Look at that.
Otherwise, I would get.
Like I said, they don't do that in the newer games.
Well, in Gears 4 hardcore mode, I can just kind of wander.
The only enemy that probably does that in the newer games is probably the warden, where he just runs at you.
So the hardest difficulty in the Gears trilogy is insane, and let's just say it's insane. In Gears 4 and 5, they added an additional difficulty even harder than insane called inconceivable.
And like I said, and that's the one thing, because like I said, and this applies to all games in my opinion. When you play like the old 8-bit, 16-bit games compared to games today, all of the old games are harder. Damn near cheap. You know what I'm saying? Like, older games are just harder in general. I think a lot of people agree with me that older games are just harder in general. Like, when you go to the arcades and you play the game, like, well, obviously arcades were designed just to take your money, so you can keep putting quarters into the machine or tokens into the machine. So like, but like in terms of just home console, like when you play older games on the NES, Super NES, and the Genesis and stuff like that, and up to these 3D games and stuff like that, the older games were just harder. They just were. They didn't cater to you, and so I think that was a conscious decision that the developers made to kind of like tone down and just take in, the environment and stuff like that. But like I said, older games were just harder in general. So like I said, what he's saying is true. But like I said, I go beyond to just how hard the games were, because when I play the game, I want to take in everything, because I view things very technically. So when just the scenery and stuff like that, and just the environment, stuff like that, I pay attention to all of that stuff. So the harder difficulties and stuff didn't really bother me. I didn't really care about that.
But guys, I gotta be honest, inconceivable in Gears 4 doesn't even come close to insane in Gears 1. Make that make sense for me. In Gears 1, I still found the enemies to be smarter, to be constantly outwitting me, whereas in Gears 4 and 5 on Inconceivable, it was kind of like they made the enemies spongier and they could take more bullets, but they weren't really smarter and the AI wasn't really more advanced. But guys, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, that the original Gears trilogy are the hardest Gears games. They're much harder, and they have more of a hardcore feel than Gears 4 and 5. Gears 4 and 5 are soft games. They're easy to beat. They were easy to get through, and they don't represent nearly the challenge of the original 3 Gears games. So guys, just to begin to wrap this video up, I am not even close to the world's biggest Gears fan, and I have only recently started playing this series.
You see, and I am.
But what I do know is it's incredibly sad for me to see a beloved trilogy of games get watered down, get softened, get feminized, get sanitized, and turned into the garbage that we have in Gears 4 and Gears 5. And no offense to you if you do like Gears 4 and 5, I just feel like they do not represent the core brand identity.
See, and again, the core brand identity, you know, the masculinity and the brotherhood and stuff like that. I'm with you with that. I'm with you on that one. But to say that the games are garbage because it's less of it or not there at all, that's what I can't say that. I can't just say that the games are just garbage. I mean, I'm not like that anyway. I'm easy when it comes to a lot of, you know, games and films and stuff like that. I'm going to get something out of it. I can't just play this and like, man, this is a piece of garbage, man. That's just not me. I'm sorry. Like I had fun playing Gears 4 for what it was. I had fun playing Gears 5 for what it was. Storyboard wise, character development wise, are they better than the first 3 games? No, they're not. But I would never say that they were just awful games. I just can't say that. Because I had fun, because I'm a big horde mode fan. I mean, horde mode was introduced in the second game. I still have fun playing. Like I maxed out all of the horde mode, all of the horde classes in 5 and in 4, both of them. And I had such a fun time. Like I said, gameplay wise, it is still a fun game to me. I just think if you are a diehard Gears of War fan like me, you're still going to find something that you can take away from it. And like I said, a lot, and obviously the player base isn't what it used to be. But I can get online right now and get a lot of games going. A lot of people still playing. I think like in Mexico, it's very big in Mexico. A lot of Mexicans like playing Gears of War, and I can see why. Because like it's still a fun game. To me, that's what. So that, like I said, I'm glad that Andy Pants and I'm sure a lot of other content creators talk about it. But I just try to see from their perspective why they think the games are just garbage. Which I totally disagree with. I don't think the games are garbage because, like I said, I'm just a diehard Gears fan. So, like I said, he has his opinion, I have mine, and I'm sure all of you do too. But man, it's just let me let him finish up, and then I'll close out.
That we see in the original Gears trilogy. As far as I'm concerned, Gears of War 1, 2, and 3 are the only real Gears games, and I hope that Microsoft returns to this original formula, returns to the masculine feel, to the brotherhood feel, returns to the
that's why they're making E-Day, because I think they're going to do that
style game that these first 3 games were. And I could almost look past the fact that Gears 4 and 5 are about motherhood instead of brotherhood if these games were still fun and difficult, but the difficulty was toned down as well.
And like I said, he says motherhood and brotherhood. Well, like I said, there was like Marcus and JD had their dynamic too. Like, for example, I told you, the fourth game, like we almost felt like we were going to lose Marcus. There was this moment where you felt like Marcus was not going to make it. And you see that father-son bond and stuff like that. I thought that was great. I mean, Marcus was pretty much with the kids throughout the story. And like I said, because he said it's about motherhood, but like, well, we kind of lose Raina, Kate's mother, very early in the story. I mean, yeah, she's a tough fighter, but she gets overwhelmed and she gets taken. And the story pretty much is to find, pretty much figure out where the swarm is coming from, but also we help Kate trying to find her mother and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a mother-daughter bond, but there's also a father-son bond too between Marcus and JD. It is, and then Dell and JD kind of have their brotherly thing too. So I mean, it is pockets of it in there, but like I said, I understand where he's coming from. It's not the whole entire dynamic, because like I said, you got Kate with her thing, and then JD and Dell and stuff like that, and you got Marcus and JD and stuff like that. So like I said, it is there, but like I said, it's just different. It's just different, and that's why I did not want to compare it. Because, like I said, once we lost Dom in the third game, I was like, okay, what can we do at this point? What can we do at this point? And like I said, and Marcus, Barrett, and Cole, they do kind of have the reunion and stuff like that. But like I said, they're old. It's 20 plus years later.
To just make these games completely uninteresting to me. So in summation, I think Microsoft giving the Gears games to the Coalition, it's similar to what they did by giving Halo to 343i. These have become bad games, and they've gotten away from the core identity of what made these games good. And I hope they find a new studio, whether it means bringing back in Cliffy B or whatever they want to do. I hope they get back to the core of what made these games good, because this ain't it. All right, I'm out of here.
All right, well, shout out to Andy Pans. Like I said, he just, putting his feelings out there. Like I said, I don't agree that these games are terrible. I'm sorry, I just don't. Like I said, if you want to critique the character development, the story, I'm with you on that one. Because like I said, I would say that those are the discrepancies within, the development in terms of the character development and the dynamic between some of the characters and the story and just the mission overall. I'm with you when it comes to just the campaign overall. Technically, they're still great from a technical standpoint, but it's like Last of Us 2 all over again. It's just technically it was fine, but it was just the story that took a plunge. So like that's why I would say for the fourth and fifth game, I would say that the fourth one had a better story than the fifth one, because like I said, if it was just JD leading the charge and JD and Dell kind of like had was close as they were in the fourth game, but in the fifth game they just dismantled all of it. And like I said earlier, JD would just seem like the bad guy. I mean, everybody was turning on him. So like it just that's what kind of ruined it for me. Story, like character dynamic wise, that's what kind of ruined it for me. But like I said, I still got through the campaign because, like I said, gameplay wise, it was still fun. The gunplay, the level designs, the new weaponry, and the use of Jack. Jack was a fun addition to Gears 5. Like I would say, that was probably the best thing of the campaign. Just being able to use Jack as a because like I said, Jack was always with you throughout the games, but in the fifth game you can actually use him, because he had like a list of abilities that you can use him for, which is cool. You can like use them to fetch like grenades and stuff like that. Like that was a great addition. That's the stuff that I look at. It wasn't just they just threw Kate in there, like she pretty much took the mantle, took it from JD and stuff like that. Yeah, I was annoyed with that, but what kind of kept me into it was just the gunplay, the gameplay, the scenery, the level designs and stuff like that. That stuff was still beautiful to me. So that's also what I hold on to. And like I said, you still see Marcus, you still see some of the classic characters, you still see Marcus, you still see Baird, you still see Cole and Clay Carmine and stuff like that. And you saw his niece Lizzie. They took her out. I wasn't happy about that, but yeah, man, I don't know which more I can say about it. But like I said, when it comes to the original branding of what Andy Pants was talking about, I agree with him on that one. It was Gears of War. It's like Fist of the North Star. It's just you can't get more masculine than that. Just the brotherhood, the camaraderie. Just down there in the foxhole, down there in the trenches with each other. So I'm with him on that one, and I'm telling you, I put my right hand up. I think that is the number one reason why people did not like these last two, because you didn't have that camaraderie of brotherhood and masculinity in the first three games. I think that's the main reason. Because like I said, he constitutes gameplay with the difficulty. I don't. I look at the mechanics and all the other stuff. So we're on a different wavelength when it comes to that. Like I said, I can understand people's criticism when it comes to characters and stuff like that, but gameplay mechanics wise, I can't, because I actually think that the newer games, like between 3 and 4, that was like the peak of it. with the movements and stuff like that. You can pull people over it with the executions and stuff like that, and the bag and tag. It just and just cause like, and to be fair to him, he said he wasn't the biggest Gears of War fan. He just started playing the games. He said, and I've been playing them since since the second one, and then I went back to the first one, and I've been playing them all the way through since. So like I said, I've always been a fan of them. I say that one is the best one. But it doesn't mean that I hate the fourth games and the fifth games. Like I said, there are things I don't like about the story, and I don't like how they treated JD and the dynamic. It just wasn't what it used to be. I agree with you on that one, and everybody who criticized it, I'm with you on that one. But it doesn't mean that I can't get on horde mode, and it doesn't mean that I can't go on multiplayer, shred, and blood and guts, execute, go out there and do the stuff that I was always doing in the Gears games. Because that's the one thing that always remained. You always had that fun gunplay. So, and that's what keeps me. And that, like I said, that's the reason why I keep getting Xboxes. Is because of Gears. It's because of this franchise. As long as they keep making Gears, I will keep getting Xboxes just because of it. I mean, it's roughly my second favorite franchise of all time. So it just. But like I said, that's coming from a diehard fan such as myself. So like I said, I'll give Andy Pence, his due and stuff like that. He admitted he wasn't the biggest Gears fan. So, but yeah, man, I just just wanted to react to that. Shout out to him and stuff like that. And I'll put his channel down there so you guys can find him. But yeah, man, just coming from a diehard Gears fan, man. Like I said, they introduced we got E-Day coming now, and E-Day, like I said, I think that's the reason why they didn't want to give us Gears 6 right off the bat, because of the criticism, right? So what he was saying, so we're gonna get Marcus and Dom back. So I think E-Day will be, but the only thing that I'm worried about, will they go back to the old mechanics and the old movements, and some of the new stuff that we got between 3 and 4, will they take those out? That's what I'm worried about. Will they take over the yanking and the mantle kick and the bag and tag? Will they get rid of all of that stuff? Because if they do, I'm going to be upset about that. Can I live with it? Of course I can live with it, but like I don't want to go back in terms of having the options that we got and taking those options away. I hope they don't do it, but like I said, it's Gears of War. It's Gears of War, so I'm going to play it anyway, and I'm going to adapt, and I'm going to deal with whatever they give us, right? But yeah, man, it's your boy Bleak, man. 31 cents at it. Another one for the archives. I'm signing off, and as always, guys, see you on the next one. Us.